Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where late last night Doug Liman said goodbye to yet another superhero movie. This time, the DCEU's Justice League Dark. Of course, he'd previously broken up with Gambit for Justice League Dark, and now he's on the hunt for another blockbuster, although as we're going to discuss, he has a pretty full dance card as is. But the reason I say it's not too surprising that he left Justice League Dark is not just because of the situation with Gambit, but because on Monday, Universal debuted their Dark Universe. And it was so incredibly successful as an announcement. I mean, I was caught off guard with how interested people were in what Universal debuted. I mean, especially because it seemed kind of slapped together, right? But boy, it just took off like a rocket. Universal, I think, really has something there. And as many of you pointed out, the DCEU had toyed with the idea of calling their Justice League Dark movie Dark Universe. And they're never going to be able to compete, by the way, with Universal's Dark Universes, what a tongue twister, star power. That is quite a group of movie stars that Universal has assembled. And Doug Liman, to be frank, can't really take another flop after The Wall debuted and no one noticed. You know, that was his movie for Amazon. He must have known it was a risk, but I think he thought a couple more people would pay attention to the movie, but they did not. But anyway, so he's left, and I have to be perfectly honest with you. If I were the DCEU, I would take this opportunity to just shelve Justice League Dark for now. I think they should stick to building the Justice League characters and building films off of that, giving people solo movies or team-up movies. And I know there's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know there's Doctor Strange, and I'm sure it's very tempting to do Justice League Dark, particularly after the animated movie that just recently came out was pretty darn compelling. You know, that's how Suicide Squad became a thing. But then also they have Suicide Squad. So build Justice League, build Suicide Squad. I just honestly don't think the DCEU is ready quite yet for Dark Universe. The foundation isn't strong enough to be building things that are that far off to the side. But Scott Rudin is producing this. Scott Rudin, he and Harvey Weinstein used to be locked in competition for who is the biggest Hollywood titan. And actually, things have gone pretty quiet for both of them these days. So I think that Scott Rudin is eager to get into the blockbuster comic book sphere, so maybe he's the reason the Justice League Dark just simply will not die, because he's like, I'm making this movie. And now apparently they're considering Andres Muschietti, who did Mama, but also the upcoming It remake, to potentially be the new director. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that It looks good, but I think a lot of that is the cinematographer and the writing, to be honest with you. But although I have to say, if they can get the Duffer Brothers maybe for Justice League Dark, I'd be like, okay, just do whatever you want. You know, the Stranger Things guys. But I'm just not quite feeling Justice League Dark at the moment. And as for Doug Liman, as I said, he's very busy. He has the Tom Cruise drug runner movie coming up, American Made, although that's having some legal difficulties because the stunt person was killed during filming. And then also he is signed to direct Daisy Ridley for Lionsgate in Chaos Walking, which is a post-apocalyptic drama. So I don't know how exciting that will be. And then, of course, he has another Tom Cruise movie, Live, Die, Repeat. And maybe as long as he's fixing his career, he might want to fix that title too. So he's out. And if I were Doug Liman, though, I wouldn't drop out of too many movies, because then I think going forward, studios will be reluctant to sign you or make an agreement with you to direct their upcoming big blockbuster, because they'll feel like we don't really have a director, because Doug Liman likes to quit these things, right? I mean, either he wants to make it or he doesn't. So that's the first story of the day. Now, speaking of Tom Cruise, he's pretty busy himself, right? Not only is he working on these Doug Liman projects, but he's currently filming Mission Impossible 6. And of course, The Mummy is coming out, the first Dark Universe film. Oh, it all ties together so beautifully, right? And he's promoting it. And then, so the big headline that he generated yesterday wasn't about The Mummy, interestingly enough, but during an interview for that movie, he revealed that Top Gun 2 is happening, and it's going to go into production, which means it'll be shooting next year. And the internet just lit up. Talk about, Tom Cruise must be feeling so great. Amazing reaction for Dark Universe on Monday, amazing reaction for Top Gun 2 on Tuesday. And I think that was, to be honest with you, intentional. I mean, there's some chance that he's negotiating. Sometimes talent will do that. They'll say, oh yeah, Top Gun 2 is happening. And then they'll go to the studio and be like, sorry, it's cat's out of the bag. You got to make it now. Look how excited everybody is. That's kind of what Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller did with Deadpool, of course, in that test footage. But Tom Cruise, I think, is more of a professional than that. He wouldn't do that. I think what's most likely is that he wanted to be the one to make the announcement. Maybe he didn't have the green light to make it an official announcement, but he did it anyway. And I also think he wants to get momentum behind himself overall as an actor and The Mummy, right? Just to be like, things are happening in Tom Cruise land. Get on board. And I'm like, oh, I'm already on board, Tom. I love your movies. I think he's doing great. And also, I think the other big question, of course, about Top Gun 2 would be if Val Kilmer would return as Iceman. Everybody would love to see that. There was rumors about him having cancer. I think Michael Douglas, of all people, outed him. And Val Kilmer denied it for a while, but recently he did admit that he had a quote-unquote healing of cancer, so I don't quite know what his health situation is like. He'd have to be insured for the movie, but hopefully they can work something out. For those of you who don't know, actors need to be insured for a film. That's sometimes one of the reasons that people can't work, because they're uninsurable. And the thing is that if something happens to that actor, the studio wants to be able to get their money back, to be protected for having to reschedule, take a big break, etc. Like, for instance, the tragic thing that happened to Paul Walker on Furious 7, you can be sure that Universal and the production companies involved in that film had insurance. And so if you're a liability, you're harder to insure, and it's harder to make the movie. So that would be maybe an issue with Val Kilmer, depending on how big his Iceman role was. But anyway, I also think it's interesting that maybe Doug Liman was like, I don't want to make Justice League Dark. I want to make Top Gun 2, because this doesn't have a director. So maybe that's one of the reasons he was like, I need to free up my schedule. Hey, Tom. Because of course he and Tom are very good friends at this point. Tom has his people, Tom Cruise. He has Doug Liman, and he also has Christopher McQuarrie. They're his two big guys right now. And Christopher McQuarrie, of course, did a fabulous job with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation and is currently doing Mission Impossible 6. So I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them ends up directing the new Top Gun film, particularly since tragically Tony Scott is no longer with us. And I have to say, Cruise is truly the comeback kid. Who would have ever thought when he was jumping on Oprah's couch that he would be able to have his career rebound like this? And he's still a Scientologist. He's still part of that group. He didn't even give that up. So I think that he just, I often comment on what a professional Tom Cruise is. It's just so apparent in his work. And he just willed it. He just was like, I'm not going away. This is pretty much all I have in life. I'm going to go back to being a movie star. And he did it. Some of you pointed out that when he was on this talk show that he had a little bit of the puffy face again, that of course they had from the BAFTAs late last year. And the thing is that I think that Tom Cruise is, not only is he fighting for his career, but he's fighting to maintain his appearance, which is interesting. It shows you that that's a pressure not just on actresses, but on actors as well in Hollywood. And I think that he's getting filler. One of the things about, if you watch Bravo more, you would know this, okay? The Real Housewives things. But when you get, Botox or, not Botox, when you get filler, because Botox freezes the face. When you get filler, they overdo it a bit because, and also it's just swelling from the injections, but you have to deflate a little bit, right? And so really Tom Cruise's team should be timing his injections better because he's having them a little too close to public appearances, and it's starting to create a situation where sometimes he's super puffy, but then when he deflates, he looks amazing. He looks so good in the Mummy trailer. People are like, he's got to be playing Dorian Gray, because he really is Dorian Gray. There's some decrepit portrait of Tom Cruise in a basement in Hollywood somewhere because he still looks amazing, or I guess in a plastic surgeon's office, right? So I think that that's the only thing that's going wrong for Tom Cruise right now. He's not timing his filler injections very well, but good for him. I love his movies. I can't wait to watch all of them. All right, and I do have to say, The Mummy was touch or go there for a little bit, but I think after Monday's Darker Universe announcement, now Top Gun 2, it is very well positioned. All right, so the third story of the day, I really want to talk about this, is that we just talked about a whole bunch of male directors, right? Doug Liman, Christopher McQuarrie, Andres Muschietti. What about female directors? Are they making progress or not? Well, I've got two of them to spotlight over at Sony. Yes, they continue to make headlines. And of course, we did talk about Ava DuVernay and her Lupita Nyong'o Rihanna movie, so she's working, and Patty Jenkins, of course, has Wonder Woman coming up. So women directors are making a lot of headway, and here are two more again at Sony. So Elizabeth Banks is still directing Charlie's Angels, and that is becoming not just a development deal, but a reality. It has a release date now, June 7th, 2019. That is tremendous confidence. That's a very good release date. The Narcos writers are doing a rewrite, which is excellent, not only because I think they're good writers, but the fact that they would put writers like that on Charlie's Angels which in the past, Drew Barrymore made it very campy, that they would put such realistic writers, Narcos covers a very realistic criminal investigation. On Charlie's Angels, I think is very promising. And I wonder if Elizabeth Banks has anything to do with that, because I think she's a good director. I think she has good instincts. And then also the other rumor is, get this, that Janelle Monáe is rumored to be a frontrunner for one of the Charlie's Angels. And I think that would be fabulous. I love Janelle Monáe. I'm waiting for someone to snap her up, and I think someone will very soon. I think that she will get the most out of Hidden Figures when all is said and done. But I think that Elizabeth Banks really knows how to appeal to women. Just look at Pitch Perfect, and I think she's going to do something really interesting with Charlie's Angels. I'm very curious. But then get this. Remember Michelle MacLaren, the director of Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, done a number of episodes on both those series, and she was booted off of Wonder Woman for really insisting on a talking tiger sidekick. How did she think that was going to end up? But anyway, she got herself a movie gig after all. She's returning for Sony, but she's directing something called The Nightingale, which is based on the best-selling novel of two sisters growing up in German-occupied France right before World War II. Ugh. I guess beggars can't be choosers, right? That just seems so... We've seen it, right? I mean, maybe there's an element that they're not doing a good job in getting across. They're like, well, wait for it. We're going to wow you. But I'm not too confident on being wowed, because the release date is not a good release date. It's August 10th, 2018. If it was the first weekend of August, I'd feel a little better about it. But that's not a great release date. But good for Michelle MacLaren. I think that despite her ridiculous Wonder Woman pitch, she's done some excellent directing work, and I would love to see her make the jump to feature films. So that's the third story of the day. Now, the viewer question is from Awesome Rockstar, who yesterday was very disappointed I didn't answer his question. So Awesome Rockstar, I told you I would answer it today. So Awesome Rockstar said, please, please, please answer my viewer question. I will. And it says, now with Star Wars Episode 9 releasing 3 weeks later than Avengers 4, we talked recently about Disney stacking their films so close together. But this, trust me, is a different question. So Awesome Rockstar wants to know, what are the chances of the sequel to Infinity War breaking the $2 billion club? I guess that's the new thing, right? And we have a lot of $1 billion club entries at this point. It's still pretty exclusive. Only up to like 4 or 5 movies a year get into it. And that's an anomaly. And last year they were all Disney movies anyway. So, considering how many movies come out a year, it's still a big deal. But anyway, the $2 billion club, of course, is the new elusive club to get into. It only has three entries, Avatar, Titanic, and Titanic got there with a re-release, so it cheated a little bit. And then, of course, Star Wars The Force Awakens. So people, I'm sure, would love to see a Marvel movie in there, and Awesome Rockstar is like, do you think that it could be Avengers 4? And he says that, it is the climax of the most successful movie franchise ever, but since Episode 7 grossed over $2 billion, and definitely Episode 9 will gross that as well. And then he said, he or she said, I really want someone to talk about the possible box office collection of both the Infinity War movies. I hope you throw some light on this topic. P.S. I love your videos. I love you, Awesome Rockstar. You're great. What do I think? I think it's very hard to get in the $2 billion club. It's not easy. And the reason that The Force Awakens got in there, you can see that Rogue One got into the $1 billion club easily, but not the $2 billion club. Rogue One isn't even one of the top 10 grossing films of all time. I don't think so. So anyway, the thing is that you have to have something special about your movie, right? Avatar, as many of you have pointed out, one of the reasons it did so well was because it was the first movie to really use 3D technology in a compelling and exciting way for mainstream audiences, right? And that's reneged a little bit. People, it didn't stick. People weren't like, 3D's here to stay. They were like, oh, for some reason I loved Avatar, but then, whatever. And then also Titanic, of course, that was really fueled by the Asian box office, one of the earliest beneficiaries of the Asian box office, because all these Asian women were just absolutely in love with Leonardo DiCaprio. They would just go to see that movie so many times, and that's where a lot of its money came from and made him a star. Also, though, Star Wars The Force Awakens was the return of Star Wars after many years, and also a return to form after the prequels, which some of you loved but disappointed most. So that was really a strong factor in getting that into the $2 billion club. And I think that there's been, and also Jurassic World came very close, but that was the return of Jurassic Park, and also a return to form after the disappointing sequels for that franchise. So you can see a little bit of a pattern here. And I think the issue is that with the Marvel movies and with Avengers, they happen so close together that there isn't a must-see element to it to bring in people who normally wouldn't go. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's not people who are like, well, I never go to the movies, but I got to see the new Star Wars. Oh, I don't normally go to the movies, but I have to see Jurassic World, the Return of Jurassic World. Like that element, right? Or like the Titanic, it's the Titanic. It's won all these Oscars. It's a big deal. Avatar. This is the 3D movie. If you're going to see a 3D movie, this is the one to see. So I don't see there being that kind of narrative for an Avengers movie because they have 2 to 3 Marvel movies a year. And I love the MCU. I think they're doing a fabulous job, but I think they're very safe. And I don't see them killing a character and keeping them away for a long time. I mean, the movies come out, Avengers Infinity War 1 and 2 or 3 and Avengers 3 and 4 come out just a year apart. So that's not going to be a long enough absence for like whoever they maybe kill in Avengers 3 for people to be like, oh, I got to come back for Avengers 4, right? It's not like, oh, we haven't seen Iron Man for like 5 years. You got to go and see this. I just don't see it happening. So I think that's fine. I think Marvel's like, we will trade it having a $2 billion club movie for almost all of our movies these days joining the $1 billion club. That's a fine trade. So I don't think it would mean that the Avengers movies aren't successful if they don't get into the $2 billion club. It's just a business decision on behalf of what Marvel has decided to do. They're running a long race here and not sprinting for one film into the $2 billion club. And also, I have to tell you, I don't think the Star Wars movies are going to get back into the $2 billion club either, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think episode 8 or 9. Maybe with Carrie Fisher, maybe you could see 8 get in there. I'll put an asterisk there. But I think that The Force Awakens was like a special situation. And I think that, especially because now a Star Wars movie comes out every year, you're going to see a little bit of settling in that box office as well. All right, so that's my thoughts. Thank you for not only a great question, but such an enthusiastic question. Awesome rock star. You are indeed awesome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, Awesome Rock Stars viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.